What if I told you that the most powerful thing you could do for your financial life has nothing to do with working harder, hustling more, or grinding until something breaks? What if the real shift is an inside job? Today, we're going to talk about the science and, yes, the spirit behind creating more money with less effort. And I promise you, by the end, whether you're a hard nosed data person or someone who keeps crystals on your desk, there's going to be something today to make you think differently about how you create more wealth in your life. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Okay, buckle up, Buttercup. This was originally going to be a bonus episode for my Substack community, the One Love Collective that I have online, my membership. But then I was like, I actually think I want this for everybody. I'm going to get real, we're going to go some places today that are going to give you a lot of insight about me and about the way I live and all that. And this isn't about me, this episode, but you will learn some things I talk about, but not front and center. And, I was thinking like, well, it's relationships made easy, and we all have a relationship with money, right? And work and how much we work. So this seemed like a good thing to share with everybody. All right. So, we're going to work through 3 sections today. We're going to talk about the science. We're going to talk about the spirit or the spirituality aspect. And then the practice, the practical tools. And the science is going to outline, the research about what's actually blocking your income. It has nothing to do with effort. And then in the second section, the spirit section, we're again tackle this kind of spiritual side of things covered in concepts like the law of attraction, and you're going to see that the woo and the science are saying the exact same thing in different languages. So stay tuned for that. And finally, in the last section, you know me, we're going to get practical. I have 3 tools, really a different starting point and a completely different relationship with how you create money that I'm going to talk about. So, okay, let's get into it. So, section 1, the science. You got to understand what's blocking you, right? That's first and foremost. So, and yes, something's blocking you. Okay. Okay. So most people think their money problems are strategic. They think, I need a better plan, a better system, a better budget, a better side hustle. But the research consistently shows that the biggest block to financial growth isn't a lack of strategy. It's the emotional and cognitive state you're in when you're trying to create that strategy. And here's what I mean. When you're anxious about money, about work, when you're operating from that scarcity, because it's real, right? Those bills are real. The rent is due. Something very real happens in your brain. And I really like the work. There's a Harvard economist. I might say his name wrong. I apologize. I think I'll have it in the blog and in the notes, but it's Senthil Mullainathan, I think. And then there's a guy from Princeton, a Princeton psychologist, Elder Shafir. And they spent years, I love their research, studying what they call the scarcity mindset. And you've heard that, right? Abundance mindset, scarcity mindset. And again, it sounds real woo, and it's not. What they found, I think, is striking. When people feel they don't have enough, okay? So when you feel like you don't have enough, your cognitive bandwidth, what you can take in cognitively narrows dramatically. In their research, people preoccupied with financial worry showed drops in cognitive performance equivalent to going without sleep for 24 hours. Do you know how stupid you get when you haven't slept? Guess what? Yes. And before I go much further, I want to say I did not grow up with money at all. I think my family had a brief period where there was a little more, and then that went away. My parents declared bankruptcy. It wasn't good. My money history was real bad. And I got myself into financial troubles early because I didn't have good modeling, right? And so I want to say that kind of upfront, that money was not abundant for me. It's not like I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth and now I'm sitting here talking about, have a good mindset and it'll come to you, And I'm also not going to tell you don't order the avocado on your, or don't, on your sandwich, or don't get the latte and you'll be fine, because that's a bunch of bullshit. We all know that. So that's not what we're talking about at all today. But I did want to say that about my background because I think it's relevant. I don't have anybody famous in my family, nobody giving a leg up, any of that stuff. So I paid for my own college education, completely, 100%. I didn't have anybody buying me a car. I'm nothing. Okay. So I just want to be real clear of that up front. All right. So, let me say that again, since I just went off topic. Worrying about money doesn't just feel bad. It literally makes you less capable of solving the money problem you're worried about. It tunnels your thinking so you can't see the bigger picture. You miss opportunities. You make shorter term decisions. The scarcity mindset perpetuates itself. I'm going to say that again. The scarcity mindset that there isn't enough, and you're looking at your bills and you're looking at real, you're saying, I know you are, because I hear you, I'm being realistic. I'm looking at reality, but you're not. It's skewed. It is skewed. I'm not saying the rent isn't due and, that's $500 and you have $400 in your bank account, or you have less. And who has rent that's only $500? What am I talking about? But anyway, you know what I'm saying. But you know what I mean? I get it. But the thing is that focusing in that way, there's not enough, really gets you into trouble. So before we talk strategy, we really need to talk about the state you're in when you're doing the work. Okay. So let me talk now about the difference between what's called approach motivation and avoidance meditation. Sorry. Approach motivation and avoidance motivation. There's no meditation here. Okay. There's just those things. I did meditate this morning though. All right. So psychologists have spent, I would say, decades studying, right? More probably what drives human behavior, right? It's been a long time, really, since the real study, I would say, since the 50s. Okay. What drives human behavior? And one of the most reliable findings in all of motivation research comes down to a simple distinction. Are you moving toward something you want, or are you running away from something you fear? Okay. And I want to say again, anytime I mention the research, I have an amazing download for today, a free download for today. Anytime I mention anything or links to previous podcasts or anything, everything can be found on the website, abbymetcalf.com. Go to this episode, or if you're watching on YouTube, below the video, you'll find everything. Okay. So either way, and yes, I have to say that every episode because there's always new listeners. I know some of you have been with me a while. You're like, Abby, we know. I'm like, I know you know. This is for the other people. So be patient. All right. Approach motivation, so let's talk about it, is when your actions are driven by the desire to gain something positive. That's approach motivation. You want a goal, an outcome, a version of your life that you genuinely want. Now, avoidance motivation is when your actions are driven by the need to escape something negative, like you're motivated because you're so afraid about your bills, see that? Or your debt or whatever. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of having no money, fear of losing what you have, right? Ending up in a box under the bridge kind of thing, right? Is that just me that goes there with the box under the bridge? Do other people do that? Okay. So here's why this matters so much for money. Most people who are hustling are actually avoidance motivated. They're not working from desire. They're working from fear. Fear that they'll lose the house, fear that they'll be seen as a failure, fear that there'll never be enough, fear that they don't know what else to do, fear. And that fear-based hustle, no matter how hard you push, produces worse outcomes than working from a place of genuine desire and possibility. Again, from the research, multiple studies have confirmed that avoidance motivation consistently undermines creativity. It narrows your what we call your cognitive flexibility, meaning your ability to kind of go between ideas or hear new ideas or think of new ideas, right? That you got to be cognitively flexible to create, to do that, right? So, and to think well and to, think something through in a healthy way. We know it depletes mental resources faster than approach motivation. So in fact, research found that when people are avoidance motivated, creative tasks feel more difficult. They require more effort. They leave them more mentally depleted afterwards. And I, again, can really tell you this. I create these podcasts every 8 years. I know everyone's like, well, there's AI now. No, I've been doing this 8 years. Okay. And so you know it's me. And I will tell you that there have been times when this felt more like a job, when I was trying to wanting people to or wanting to help or whatever I was doing at the time. And now it never depletes me when I'm I enjoy it. I really do. So, I worked this last weekend some, writing, and I love to write. And my husband was telling someone, he's like, oh, she works so hard. And I said, I really don't. I don't work so hard. I know you say that because you see me in there going, but I am not exhausted afterwards. I am not burnt out afterwards. I feel motivated. I feel inspired. I feel it when I'm writing it, when I'm talking to you. The whole time I'm picturing myself talking to you. Again, this is really approach motivation, right? I do it as I'm recording. I'm alone in my, look, if you see me on YouTube, I'm here alone in my office. But I really feel connected to you. I do. I picture you in my mind. I'm talking right to you. And it feels like I'm really in the room with you for me. I look forward to it. I'm like, oh, I get to record today. That's how I think. And that is a different mindset than I used to have about work and things like that. So I want you to think about, again, what that means in practice. When you're hustling from fear, you are burning through your cognitive fuel, your emotional fuel at a really accelerated rate. Your creative problem solving suffers. The very thing you need most to build something new, which is the ability to think flexibly. Flexibly? Is that a word? I'm going to say that. Your ability to think in a flexible way and see what's possible, it gets shut down by the stress state you're operating from. I'm telling you, approach motivation by contrast, is associated with what researchers call an expansive cognitive style. And whenever I say cognitive, it's just how you think, right? You're more likely to see connections between things. You generate more ideas. You're more creative. You're more intrinsically motivated, which means you persist longer and with more genuine investment. There was one study I read that they found that even simple physical gestures, how do they say it? I want to say it right. They found that even simple physical gestures associated with approach motivation, like pulling something toward you versus pushing it away, were enough to measurably enhance creative performance. How do you like that? Look at that. So if you want to create more money without more hustle and more angst, the first shift is moving from avoidance to approach motivation, not just in your actions, but in your emotional state underneath those actions. You have to ask yourself right now, am I pursuing this goal because I generally want it? Or am I running from something I'm scared of? There's no judgment in the question. I want to be clear. Most of us are doing kind of both at different times, right? But getting honest about which driver is in the seat right now, that's the beginning of everything. That's the beginning that we want to stay with, okay? And again, we'll talk about the practice of all this in a little bit. Okay, you know what? I need a sip of water. Because now we have to talk about section 2, which is the spiritual, which is where I'm going to get a little we're going to get close. So buckle, like I said, buckle up. Now we're going to get there. So the science is here. It's clear. And if you just want to go by the science, go by the science. I go by the spiritual and the science. Okay. So, and I want to get a little personal with you here, and maybe a little woo. I say maybe because as I think you know by now, I've spent my career watching science catch up to things that used to sound completely crazy, used to sound completely out there woo. Here's what I've been doing, okay? And I've done a lot of things I've shared before on here. I walked hot coals with Anthony Robbins back in 1985 when I was first getting clean. Way back when Anthony Robbins had, if you don't know who that is, look him up. He had, I think there was 250 of us in the room, 300 people in the room. I'm talking back then, okay? Before the infomercials, way early I found him. I did with Est. Now it's called, I think, Landmark with Werner Erhard, like the man who created it. I did Life Spring. I mean, you name it, I was doing it. I was trying. I was going to 12-step meetings. I was seeing Marianne Williamson doing town halls in New York City. I was pretty desperate to find something to stay clean. That and not everything was working. So I started following the teachings of Abraham in 1986. And let me tell you a little about who or what Abraham is, because without that context, I think none of this is going to land exactly. And I just want to say again what I've done and where that's been for me. And you can follow or not follow. There's no money involved in this at all, or any like selling you anything that has to do with Abraham. So Esther Hicks is a woman who began receiving what she describes as blocks of thought from a non-physical group consciousness. She calls Abraham. I know, right? We're going there, people. I said to buckle up. So I know right now you might be rolling your eyes, but just stay with me because you're going to see how the science intersects with this. And she's very specific, by the way, about the language here. She doesn't call herself like a channeler. Like she's not channeling some spiritual being. She calls it translation. Abraham themselves, we say they because it's a group, and we use a singular term, Abraham. So I know the pronouns can be confusing. Although these days we say they too, in other ways. So Abraham themselves have weighed in on this kind of directly. So they say you could simply call it inspiration. So the way they say it, I can't remember where I've been following for so many years, but they say you don't call a brilliant musician a channeler, right? But in a sense, they are. They're pulling something larger than their ordinary thinking mind and bringing it through into the world. And that's what Esther does. Okay. So Abraham has described themselves as a group consciousness from the non-physical dimension. And they're sort of famous for saying, we are that which you are. You are the leading edge of that which we are. Like that everything is sort of connected. Louise Hay, who was just one of the great teachers of our generations, Hay House, if you don't know the publishing group, and her amazingness. Anyway, she called Abraham some of the best teachers on the planet. Wayne Dyer, if you remember him, called them the great masters of the universe. So, and you could probably know their work without realizing it, because Rhonda Byrne, I think she's Australian, that woman, there was a book and a movie called The Secret many years ago that I have some issue with, but that was built directly on the law of attraction teachings that came through Esther from Abraham. Okay. So, and again, I have some issues with law of attraction. So I try to be very clear about this, because I think the way that it was interpreted is not exactly what Abraham's teachings are. And I came to Abraham during one of the hardest periods of my life, right? I was getting clean. Heroin is not easy to get clean from. And something in those teachings reached me when nothing else had. But even then, even as I was watching real shifts happen in my life, as I was following the teachings, there was always a small part of me that was kind of wondering, is this BS? Is this true, or do I just want it to be true? Right. And, being the cynical New Yorker that I am, I'm a show me the science kind of gal. I definitely was having a hard time buying in for quite some time. But then as I went through my master's training and my doctoral training in psychology, I kept noticing something. The research kept arriving at the same conclusions Abraham had been teaching for decades, right? It was just a different language. I think of it like the Tao of Physics. If you haven't read that book, what an amazing book by physicist Fritjof Capra. He drew parallels between quantum physics and Eastern mysticism, and he showed that they were really describing the same reality from different starting points. And that's how I now experience the Abraham teachings. The woo and the science are speaking the same language. And once I truly saw that, I think that last bit of doubt I carried really dissolved. And I've watched my personal life explode with abundance and lots of good luck. I always get told what good luck I have. I don't have good luck. Well, we all have good luck, right? Gay Hendricks wrote a really wonderful book. I think it's called, what is that called? Unconscious Luck? Something like that. It's a really good book. Gay Hendricks is amazing. He wrote The Big Leap and some other books, or Conscious Luck. I think he called it Conscious Luck. Really good book. Another one. I'll try to remember to link it under the episode. Because it's really not just luck. It's again this sort of mindset, and I'm not just talking money, by the way. When I talk about an abundant life, I'm thinking just how happy I am with my children and my relationships and my friendships and just my life. It shows up in all the areas. We're talking about money today and work, but you can apply these teachings everywhere. But here's the teaching to me that changes everything. Abraham says you have to be satisfied with what is while you're reaching for more. So I'm going to say that again because this is really the key for me and I want for you. You have to be satisfied with what is. You have to be okay where you are, not in a fear mindset with where you are. And while you're reaching for more, it's okay to reach for more. I think it's actually wonderful to reach for more. And that's Abraham's core teaching on money and on desire. You can't get to a new financial reality from a place of desperate, anxious wanting. Okay? You can't get there. And I just gave you the science to show you how, but Abraham has been saying this in another way for all these years, but it's the same message. The wanting itself, when it's loaded with fear and lack, keeps you exactly where you are. Okay? That's the thing. That's the thing I want you to get. So this isn't about pretending things are fine when they're not. This is not toxic positivity. I'm not talking about that. It's about finding genuine appreciation for where you are right now, even as you actively reach for something different. Okay. So again, that could be in your relationship. That could be, I teach this all the time. That could be with money. We were talking about today. It's with everything. Real satisfaction as your starting point, not as your reward for arriving somewhere. The reason you want something is because of how you think you'll feel when you get it. And the big secret is, and it's not so secret, is that you could feel that way right now. You could feel safe right now. You could feel replete, full, fabulous right this very minute. It's not when, it's not in the when, right? And that's why people can keep making more money and still not be happy, because a lot of times they make more money, but then they expand their lifestyle. As soon as they make more money, they buy a better car or they go to a better apartment or they whatever, as opposed to saving that money or, investing it differently or doing something else with it. It's like you keep expanding, and it's fine to want things. If a car is important to you and you want that, great. But really think about, why do you want the car? Because you want how you think you'll feel in it. But you could feel that now. You could look at your old Honda and feel the same way as you do in a new Maserati. You can. I know it sounds like a stretch, but you could. And so it's really, I've known people who were in literal poverty and who were happy day to day. I have. And I work with 2 billionaires. I work with people with a lot of money. I work with very famous people who are miserable, who have it all, quote unquote, and are miserable. So again, it's not, we know that having money, we do know this from the research, Ed Diner's research mostly, that having money, when you don't have food or shelter, having money does raise your happiness level. Okay, it does. Having those things satisfied, having food, having shelter, but once those things are satisfied, more money does very little to raise our what we call life satisfaction. It does very little to raise that number. That's the bottom line. We know that the biggest impactor on feeling happy, fulfilled, I hate that word happy, but you know what I mean, is the quality of your relationships, which is why I have the podcast. So not how much money I got. And again, I know the joke, I'd rather be crying in my Ferrari or whatever, I get it, sure. But again, focus on the here and now. And again, here's where the science closes the loop completely. What Abraham calls the frequency of fear and scarcity, researchers call avoidance motivation paired with a scarcity mindset. Okay. What Abraham calls alignment and inspired action, researchers call approach motivation from a regulated nervous system. Different vocabularies, same prescription. Okay. There's I don't know if you've ever read, there's author Hal Elrod. He wrote a book, very famous book called The Miracle Morning, which if you haven't read it, I would highly suggest if you're looking for a morning routine. I quote him a lot. But he wrote another book that I really like called, what's that called? The Miracle Equation. And he talks about kind of two decisions that determine whether a goal moves from possible to probable to inevitable. Okay. He says the two things are unwavering faith and extraordinary effort. The unwavering faith idea is the Abraham piece, right? Believe it's coming. Feel it as real. Refuse to let your emotional state be contingent on the result. Oh, I have a guided imagery that goes with today that helps you like feel it as real. Again, I'll talk about that at the end though. So never mind. But the extraordinary effort piece is the action component. So of course you have to take action. That's what I didn't love about The Secret. The Secret was like, think about a bike and you'll have a bike. I don't think it exactly works that way. I think it's really good when we're doing the things to get towards that, because it also helps with our motivation and helps us feel inspired. But together, when you do these two things, extraordinary, having the belief and the effort, they describe doing the work from a regulated, grounded, approach motivated state rather than like a desperate, grasping, depleting energy of hustle from fear state, right? That's really why that works. So whether you want to call it, I don't care, a vibration or approach motivation or a regulated nervous system that's in alignment with your goals, the answer is the same. The emotional state you're in while you pursue money and satisfying work matters as much as any strategic or tactic you'll ever try. You can't hustle your way into abundance from a place of fear. You have to feel your way there first. And if the deeper science behind all this interests you, I did a whole episode on exactly how the law of attraction works at the kind of the quantum physics level. So I will also link to that, in the blog and below the video on YouTube. So let's get into it. So section 3, right? This is the practice. But before I jump into the practical tools for shifting your state, again, my free download for today, I think that will really help. It's called What's Really Driving Your Relationship with Money. And I'll talk about it more at the end with the Therapy to Go bundle and the guided visualization and all that. So, because if this is all resonating with you and you want to do the deeper work, again, hang out. I just don't want to do it in the middle because you might not care about it. Okay. So let's talk about practical tools for shifting your state. So what does this actually look like in practice, right? These are the tools I come back to again and again. So I'm going to give you 3. I think I'm going to give you 3. Yeah, I've got 3 in my head. All right. So one is what I call, or it's called a stillness practice. Before you do any money related work, any business strategy, any client outreach, you're reviewing your budget, making a budget, spend 5 minutes, set a timer, 5 minutes in stillness, not scrolling, not planning, just breathing and settling your nervous system. Okay. You're literally moving yourself from avoidance motivated, like a threat state, into the more sort of open, creative, approach motivated state, and that's where your best thinking is going to happen. If guilt or anxiety shows up during that stillness thing, which it often does, just take it as information, notice it, name it, remind yourself, this is exactly why I'm doing this. I'm interrupting the pattern. That's why I'm getting still. Okay. This is one of those times when I'm going to tell you yet again, you have to create a 15-minute per day meditation practice. You've got to get better at stillness. One of the things Abraham does talk about, they say, if you want to have abundance in your life, do 2 things. Meditate for 15 minutes a day and talk or think about gratitude as often as possible. And I got to tell you, it really works. So, and I did a whole episode on meditation a while ago and all the research about it and how it really does help with this. It will change your life. 15 minutes. You don't have to do hours. You don't. 15 minutes. You can, I have a program, how to meditate for 15 minutes in 15 days. You can buy that. I think it's $11 or something. I'm sure, get that. Follow a program on an app like Insight. I like Insight Timer. That's my favorite app I use. There's a ton of them, right? A ton of those apps, little programs. I have a free meditation starter kit. You could start with the free thing. I don't care what you do, but start something tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. Get whatever it is today. Find out use Insight Timer, buy something, get my free whatever you're doing. And then tomorrow you start. If you're serious about changing your attitude and your approach to your finances and your life, start. Just start. Okay. Number 2 is the appreciation anchor. Remember I told you, right? Each morning before you look at your inbox, revenue numbers, your budget, or your to-do list, write down 3 things that are already working in your business or financial life. 3 things that are already working. Not as like a gratitude exercise, I'm grateful for, but like a deliberate neurological reset. You're priming your brain for approach motivation before you begin your day. The research on what Abraham calls that, frequency of appreciation, and what neuroscience calls positive affect priming, same thing, both point, they have the same outcome. People who start from baseline of appreciation, okay, make more creative, forward-oriented decisions. End of, my friend. It's not woo BS. There's research, okay? There's a lot of research on this. The third thing I want to suggest is something called the alignment map. And this is a tool I created specifically for this work. So basically, you take a piece of paper, you draw a line down the middle. On the left side, you write every action in your business or financial life that feels heavy, that feels draining, or like something you should do. And then on the right side, you write every action that feels energizing, that you find yourself doing without effort. Okay. The goal is not to eliminate everything on the left immediately. That's not what we're trying to do. That first goal is awareness, because when you're in avoidance motivation, you often can't feel the difference. That's the problem. So this alignment map helps you start seeing it. And over time, you'll work toward building a way of looking at money and work that lives increasingly on the right side of that line. And that's where sustainable, non-hustle income lives. I'm telling you. I actually have a really good worksheet for creating an effective alignment map in today's Therapy to Go bundle. Again, I'll talk about in a minute. All right. I spent some time in the Therapy to Go bundle for this episode. I'll tell you that. So anyway, let me wrap up. And I want to talk about real world constraints, because I want to be really clear about something before we close. And this episode isn't about bypassing real financial hardship through positive thinking. Okay. It's not. Scarcity is real. Bills are real. The psychological research on scarcity was conducted precisely to understand and alleviate genuine poverty, not to suggest that people struggling financially just need a better mindset, right? That was not the goal. What the science tells us, what Abraham teaches, is that where we have agency over our emotional state, that exercising that agency changes our outcomes. It doesn't change every circumstance, but it consistently changes our ability to see, to create, and to respond to opportunities. Okay, so this is for the people who have the room to make a shift, but are burning themselves out in avoidance mode. It's for the people who are working extremely hard and wondering why it doesn't feel like enough. It's for anyone who suspects there might be a different way to pursue life, the life they want. You don't have to choose. That's the thing between the science and the spirit. They're saying the same thing. So I don't care maybe God is driving you, the universe, maybe just science is driving you, whether you call it, again, alignment, a regulated nervous system, vibration, or approach motivation. I don't care. The prescription's the same. You have to feel your way there first. Okay. So that's all I'm going to say. Well, it's not all I'm going to say. It's all I'm going to say on that. So let me talk about, the free giveaway for today is what's really driving your relationship with money. So if you want to know exactly which pattern is running your financial life right now, I created, it's kind of a free assessment for this episode that will give you the answer. It's going to take you about 10 minutes to do. Okay. So what's really driving your relationship with money? You can get that again below the video or on the website at this episode. And by the end of it, you'll really know whether you're operating from inspiration or fear. And of course, what to do about it, right? Then I created the Therapy to Go bundle. What's the Therapy to Go bundle if you're new? They're $10. And you get the free download in it. But if you want to try the free download first and see if is this good? Does Abby know what she's doing? Then do that. But if you're just like, no, this is a big issue for me and I want all the goodies, then pay you $10 and you'll get the free download plus the rest of what I'm about to say. So there's going to be an alignment map in there. So that exercise I gave you above, but like holding your hand, walking you all the way through it. I have a time audit in there. So you can, again, we're not just being woo, we're being real science-based, and looking at your time and how you spend it and where you put things is important, right? There are journaling prompts about your relationship with money and effort, because that's really big. Remember, a lot of this is psychological. And then my favorite part is I did a guided visualization. I always had the hardest time feeling like I already had it, because they always tell you have to do that, right? You got to sort of feel like it's already here. And that's hard when you're like, oh my God, but my bills are due and this is due and I have no money in the bank and my credit credit rating sucks or whatever, right? And my car just broke down and whatever. So what the guided visualization does is it really helps. I'm really proud of it. It really helps you be in that moment and get you to feel the way you need to feel. So that's why I was like, I have to do a guided visualization for this episode. So that's what's here. That's all the goodies. I think that's it for today. All right. So I don't know. I'm really excited that I got to do this episode. I think it's a really good one for all of us. I hope this helped. I really thank you again to my Substack community. You guys are the best, because it's how I come up with so many of the great things that we end up doing here on the podcast. All right. Mwah. Love you. Have a wonderful week, and we'll talk real soon.